I have to give some context for people outside of the United States. What you're looking at is a picture of an actor named Alec Baldwin, and he played a character in a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross. And he was brought in to shake up a group of underperforming real estate salespeople who really weren't real estate people. They were really just defrauding people of their money by pretending to sell them land in Florida that didn't really exist and that they didn't really own. But when he comes in, he's mad at everyone for not doing their job, and he starts yelling at them. And one of the things he says is A always, B, C closing, always be closing. And he yells at them and he shakes them up pretty good because he's so aggressive, and he uses a lot of bad words that we're not going to use here. But it's a terrific movie in that it describes exactly what salespeople were taught to do and how sales leaders led them throughout, let's call it the 1970s and maybe part of the 1980s. So the idea was always be closing. And then what that meant was the salesperson was supposed to do whatever it took to win the business. And it means if I have to be high pressure, I'll pressure people. If I have to use a hard sell, I'll use a hard sell. If I have to do something before they're ready and I just have to force them to do it, I'll force them to do that. But the world changed and the world got a lot smaller. And you know that because we have people here from India and faraway places. And now you're competing in a global economy and we're competing in a global economy. There's lots of people who can do certain things. There's lots of people who play, and information now is free. So there's no more disparity of information where I know everything and you as the customer know nothing. So what happened is things started to shift the other direction. But they shifted a little bit too far, and we ended up in a place where instead of always be closing, it's never be closing. And so from about 2009 until about 2017, there were books written, there were people that went out and spoke and talked about the idea of never be closing, never ask the client to make a commitment. You just wait until they're ready and they'll tell you that they're ready to take the next step, and you're just there to serve them with information. Okay, so the first idea, always be closing, means you're going to try to push people really hard and potentially take advantage of them. Okay, well, that's not good. And then never be closing means I'm not asking my customers to make the commitments that they need so that we can even get through a sales process. So that's not good advice either. So what's the truth? The truth is that you always have to be gaining the next commitment. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that with you. I'm going to go forward to go backwards here, so stay with me. In 1988, a guy named Neil Rackham wrote a book called Spin Selling. And Spin Selling is still published in hardcover by McGraw-Hill. It's the largest selling book that printer has ever produced, that publisher's ever produced. It's still in hardcover today, and lots of people still rely on spin selling. And spin means ask situation questions like, tell me how much of this you do, tell me how many of these you use. And problem questions, what kind of challenges are you having? And implication questions, what happens if you don't change? And then need payoff questions, which sound like this. If we were able to get you that result, how would it change your business? And now the customer has to start talking about what they're going to get out of going through this change, and they have to think about the implications of not changing. But for me, I didn't read that book, Spin Selling, until 1993. And in 1993, 5 years after it was out, I found 3 pages before the spin model ever even starts. And on these 3 pages, Neil Rackham describes the difference between successful salespeople and unsuccessful salespeople. What he noticed after watching 34,000 sales calls is that there were some people who got what he called an advance. They got a commitment that the customer made that moved them one step closer to doing business together and one step closer to the results they needed. And salespeople who failed did not get an advance. They got what he called a continuation, which sounds like this. Tejas, thank you so much for your time and for sharing this with us. I'm going to talk to my team, and we're definitely going to get back to you in the future. We like you a lot, and you did a really good job. And all those positive things that I said sound really nice, but I didn't really make any commitment to do anything. I didn't really say, yes, we're actually going to do business together, or yes, we're actually going to take the next step and explore something. I just said something nice so that you'll go away. And so this is called a continuation. What happened to me is that I was selling in a very, very commoditized market of temporary staffing, and there were lots of competitors. And when I found out that the people who were succeeding were asking for a commitment that moved the deal forward, I started asking for commitments that would move the deal forward.